Welcome to the Church Solutions Podcast, brought to you by JSL Solutions. The Church Solutions Podcast is designed to help equip you and your church in the use of technology and other tools and services. And now, here are your hosts, Steve Lacy and Phil Thompson.
Welcome, everyone, to another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. My name is Phil Thompson.
And my name is Steve Lacy.
And we now enter to the time of the podcast where we talk about ourselves, the most narcissistic moment in podcasting. Have you ever
We'll make it
that?
brief.
Well, have you noticed it? I mean, there's nothing more narcissistic than listening to a podcast the first 5 minutes or 10 minutes for many of them, not us. But they're always talking about themselves. Have you noticed
Not
that?
us, huh?
Well,
we always do.
We do for a minute or two, but that's just to tell people who we are.
Yes.
They
know who we are. They're listening to our podcast.
But you listen to podcasts more than I do. Don't you run into that? Do they talk a lot?
No, not really.
I must be listening to the wrong ones.
You do. Yes, they just say, today we're going to talk about this.
Okay.
Let's jump to that. What are we talking about?
All right. Well, I got to say, we got to at least tell people who we are.
Oh, they downloaded our podcast. They know who we are, don't they?
I don't know. Unless they find it on.
We are JSL Solutions, home of StreamingChurch.tv, Church App Live, and MyFlock. There, we did it.
All right. Nobody knows what those products are, but we'll move on.
Yes.
So, all right. So anyhow, today we're going to talk about reasons why video can help your church attract and retain guest. And we're not necessarily talking about streaming video, which is what you might expect from us since we do provide streaming video. But we're not talking about streaming necessarily. We're just talking about video in general.
Right.
So, as you know, I'm more of an introvert.
And I am too.
You are too. Okay. But I think we're well-adjusted introverts.
INTJ. I think we may be the same thing, right?
We are the same thing, yeah. Although that can change. So, as an introvert, and I speak all the time. So, by the way, introverts can be great people when it comes to speaking.
Yeah, our senior pastor was just talking this weekend about how he's an introvert. It's basically where you get your energy and what wears you out. So
exactly. So we won't get into introverts versus extroverts, although I think we've done that. But so, when somebody invites me over to their house for dinner, and I've not really ever met them, or maybe just bumped into them once or something, it's right up there with a traumatic experience, or potentially traumatic experience, like dental work, root canals, or, brain surgeries or something like that. You know what I'm saying? So if you're an introvert, you're not likely just to show up at the party just because you think it's a good idea. I mean, you might go, but you usually know a few people, or that kind of a thing. So when we're talking about video here today, well, let me back up again. The difference is, if you invite me over to your house, I know you, so I'm more likely to come.
Yes,
because I know
and
you.
Probably not as stressed out.
Yeah, I know your family. I'm not as stressed out. Especially if you're inviting me there's people that I already know coming to the party. And I'm going to show up probably, maybe not. But at least I'm more open to the idea as an introvert, as opposed to what I mentioned earlier, and that is I know nobody.
So why is that? What's the key?
Well, the difference is the word familiarity. So if I'm familiar with you and your family, or the people over there, and then I'm going to be more likely, more open to visiting. You know what I'm saying? Right. But if I don't know you as an introvert, now my wife might come. She's an extrovert.
Right. She might need to meet some new people, huh?
Yeah, that would be exciting to her, but not to me. So
what does this have to do with video?
What does it have to do with video? So the idea here is that with you, if you have video, if you can use video for your church to some level, some degree, it can help open doors up for people that are looking for a church, and they can begin to feel more comfortable, and they might actually come and visit your church. Mm-hmm. Is that making sense?
Oh yeah, I think we've said this before. I mean, and I know I've talked about where we meet. We'll go through the process. I'll meet somebody new, and they go, "Oh, this is your first time?" They go, "No, I've actually been coming for a month."
Yeah. Well, that was more along the lines of streaming video, which we could talk about later.
Right.
We're not really going to talk about streaming video today.
But it's the same concept. The same benefits, yes.
Yeah, it's the same benefits. And so, but the reason I'm bringing this up is because today, more than ever, there's, now putting video on your website, shooting video, it's so much easier, so much just less expensive than ever before. I mean,
Yeah, you mentioned I listen to a bunch of podcasts, and I do, and I listened to one that were talking about basically how we're receiving our media and how that is changing.
Right.
We used to be much more of a society that would read more and read longer material,
Yep.
and now we're reading much shorter material, and it's getting to the point where the most digested stuff are short video clips or pictures.
Right.
So we're moving, towards this whole video thing.
Well, and you can take that to the level of even social media.
Yeah,
on Facebook.
Definitely.
I can post a picture on Facebook if it's, something interesting picture of something, and I can get, 50, 60 people liking it, within a few hours. If I just post one of my usual dumb comments, I might get 10, 12 people maybe. But so images, those kind of things attract people, and that's why they say in social media you should post images.
Right. And then videos even.
Yeah, and so videos, yeah, absolutely.
A step beyond that.
Cat videos. By the way, I went up to a friend of ours invited up to us to the White Mountains, and this past weekend, Pine Top, Arizona, beautiful place. But they had a cat, and I've never been allergic to cats. I don't think until I met your cats. So I just assumed it was your cat's problem, not mine. But I was allergic to their cat. It wasn't too bad, though. I was able to keep it under control. But how did I get off on that? Oh, anyhow.
I don't know. You took a video of cats.
Cat
videos.
I did post a picture of the cat on my Facebook page. So anyhow, yeah. So we're getting off track here. But why? Let's talk about why video can help your church attract people and retain guests. And one of the things that you mentioned, Steve, is that today you don't we've talked about streaming video, and that's a little more detailed, although that's getting much more simpler now too. But with video today, you can do all sorts of things with Facebook, your website. You don't have to have long videos, just like you mentioned, a short little clip can help people. And so the familiarity will really open the door to people if they get a chance to see some video. If they're looking for a church, they come across your website or your Facebook page.
And yes, and it's the deal. I mean, a picture is worth 1,000 words, right? So how many words is a video worth?
Absolutely.
But it allows people to see if they're going to be able to relate and connect to somebody. They wouldn't show up if they felt like they weren't going to be comfortable with the style that is going on. So yeah, it kind of moves the relationship along a few steps before they even come into the church to visit the church, because they'll have become familiar. They go, oh, this guy's got, he's funny and I like his sense of humor or whatever it may be. Yeah. I can relate to this. And so you kind of move in to the relationship a little more willing to share and expose yourself.
And we've said it kind of creates open windows for your church. People can kind of look in without having to walk in the door and feel nervous about, what am I walking into here?
A really low barrier to entry, because you can check it out. And I think I've mentioned this before, but one of the guys I used to work with said I think it was the top 3 most uncomfortable times in his life. One of them was at church.
No.
The number 1 was at church.
That just kills me when I hear that, because I've worked with churches for so many years. And when I hear that story, when I hear you tell that story, I just think, gosh.
Yeah. I mean, and he's been in, I know uncomfortable situations like, making a big presentation to some senior leaders, and that'll get your blood flowing, but get you uncomfortable. He said the most uncomfortable was at church.
Yeah, and that's a sad commentary.
But had he seen video, he probably would have said, "This is not the right fit for me."
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. So it really opens up the door. Familiarity opens up the door. The second point is video actually can facilitate connection. So you mentioned this just at the beginning of the podcast, that and this is another story. It's a different story, but it's the same deal. Somebody I was talking to, a pastor I was talking to, said, a guy came up to him and said, "Hey, I really feel like I know you." And the pastor said, "Well, great, but how long have you been attending here?" And the guy said, "Oh, this is my first time at your church, but I've seen all your videos on your website." and I just feel like I'm at home. Mm-hmm. And so again, going back to what you just said, you get a chance. The video part, video ministry. You can do a lot of things with it. You can have some fun videos on there. You can have some serious videos, but it's a powerful tool to really help connect people. And if you can put several on there, even if you just start with one, it gives people a feeling for the church. And of course, you want to be authentic about it.
Right.
You don't want to be somebody you're not on the video. But
it's probably tough to be somebody you're not unless you get footage from somewhere else or something. But
you can put a facade on, I guess. I don't know. But like the church I'm working with now, before I got with them, they actually ran some TV commercials, and they took one of their TV commercials, and it's a 1-minute video, and they put it on their website. And it's really a good tool because when you go to their homepage, it was really professionally produced, obviously, because it was for a commercial. You don't have to go to that extreme, I don't think. You can produce a decent video, and we'll get into that maybe here in a moment. But and it's a nice little video. People can see, and you get a real good idea. Okay, here's what this church is all about. And if you don't like that, then you don't go. You don't come. But if you are interested in that, then you might show up and see if it is something that would work. So it really does help facilitate, connecting people.
All right. So we have number 1 was familiarity opens the door. Number 2, video facilitates the connection.
Yeah, and then the third one is video can really, if it's done right, it can maximize some great opportunities. It can attract people, and I think it can retain guests. There's a survey out by Thomas Rainier, and I think it's from an article or a book called Surprising Insights of the Unchurched, which I'm always interested in. And it says 90% of unchurched people choose a church based on the primary communicator and his or her preaching. So, which that doesn't totally surprise me. 90% seems a little high, but maybe not. So what he's saying here is, people are going to start coming to your church and because of the person speaking.
Right.
Usually that's going to be the senior pastor. And so they come because they now I would have thought it might be a little lower, but maybe not. Some people like music, some people, whatever it might be. But so the idea here is that, maybe create a little highlight reel of your pastor and some of his best one-liners that people could watch, and you could post it on the website somewhere. Maybe even a catalog of some of your messages, and you can put it on YouTube. Now, that's a little more work than what we just talked about earlier.
Right.
But it is possible to do.
Yeah, and a lot of churches are doing this. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a catalog on YouTube, but they'll videotape their services and make them available online. Because I know that at our church, the senior pastor had asked, when new people show up, they say, well, how'd you like our website? And what was the first thing you checked out? Right. And almost always it was, I checked out your sermons, and if you have video sermons, then they can really, so it's a key place to post your sermons and get some exposure.
Well, it really is. And again, getting back to not having to spend, let's take a moment, let's divert off these notes for just a second, and let me just explain how easy it is to do a little video. And I did this actually with your pastor, Jeff, when I was working for your church at one point. We would do a thing every Monday, and I would take my iPhone in, usually to his office, although we did do it some other places, and I would just kind of make sure the lighting was good and make sure there wasn't a lot of noise. Right. And I would literally shoot a video from my iPhone for about a minute or so, maybe
sitting
a little
across longer. His desk, right?
Yeah, or his desk, or maybe on his couch or something at a decent office where there was a little more furniture. And I could literally just hold my iPhone, and now you have to understand, Jeff's, he would kind of think about this for maybe a few minutes beforehand. Uh-huh. He's very good at ad-libbing anyhow. But he would talk about what's coming up, or he would mention maybe briefly, hey, last week we talked about, being grateful, and I hope this week you'll continue to think about, some things you can be grateful about, as an example. And then he would maybe give a little preview of what's coming up the next Sunday. This Sunday we're going to talk about, why worry is harmful to your mind or something,
So you would do this in one take? Or?
I would do it most of the time. We got it down pretty pat where Jeff was pretty good at doing it in one take. I mean, and there was a few times where we'd get stuck in a rut. It'd take 4 or 5 takes. But the more you do it, I actually started doing this with my pastor, but it just, he's part-time, I'm part-time. It's hard to get together. I tried it after a service or two, and he was actually incredibly awkward, which is kind of unusual because he's a good speaker, but he was awkward on video, so he wasn't used to it. But with your guy, Jeff, and what I'm saying this for is anybody can pretty much do this, a little bit of practice, and you can get it down. And then I would take the video, and I literally, wouldn't have to do any editing. I would just, once we got it down to a science, he'd do his deal, a minute or two at the most, and then I'd stop it, and I would upload it to their YouTube channel. And then from there, I would capture that because YouTube gives you a link. You can put it on your Facebook page. You can put it on your website. If you really want to, you can download the actual video, create a file if you really want to do that. And that's easy to do as well. It doesn't take very long. And then you can put it different places. And it really does. It's not long. It's not complicated. And you've got it.
Sounds good. Now, YouTube doesn't let you download videos, though.
Well, you can capture,
You have the video you uploaded, so you already had it,
You can upload, but there's free software out there. I use it all the time.
To download off of YouTube?
Where I can download a video from YouTube. Now, there are some videos on YouTube. I can't remember the software. But there's
sounds a little shady to me.
No, it's legit. It's very legit. And you can, now there's some video, YouTube will stop you usually from downloading like movies or maybe some music that's up there, but you can download a YouTube, make it a file, whatever kind of file you want, and then you can run it. I run stuff all the time, and it's totally legit. And I'm sure people are going to ask me what is the,
because it's not available. YouTube doesn't give you a download link.
No, YouTube doesn't, I don't think.
No, they don't.
You can grab, I can't. I've got Windows 8 on this piece of junk, and I can't find what I'm looking for. But that's a whole other subject. But there's software you can use to do that, and you can grab it and put it different places. So,
all right.
Even if you trying to tell me what I'm doing is illegal, you can at least share the link. YouTube will give you a short link.
We went down a rabbit hole. Yes,
you can do that.
You're pointing out that it's very easy to do and very easy to share.
It's easy to do and easy to share. So there's this misnomer out there for a lot of people. Well, if I'm going to shoot video, I'm going to have lighting. I'm going to have to have this expensive camera. I
got to have an editing crew that's going to edit it for a week.
And I've done that. I've done that. I've gone through those hoops, but really you can make it pretty simple as far as what we're talking about today, about a snippet or some information, from your pastor that's maybe a couple minutes long. You know what I mean? And if you want to get a little more elaborate, just you've got a camcorder, put it on a tripod, and you could actually do something where it was a little longer than a minute or two,
Right.
And then there is some video.
But it does work, and people are used to consuming that quality of video as well. I mean, you can make a bigger production out of it, and if you're streaming, you're definitely going to have the equipment where you strap a lapel mic on and start doing that sort of thing. But
there's guys out there blogging that do video. I can't remember his name offhand, and he's got all this elaborate equipment and does a great job. And I'm not saying you don't do that, but if you want to start off, there's some simple ways you can do this, and it can look okay, and it doesn't have to look cheap. I mean, so we talked about your pastor, maximizing your opportunities with video with your pastor, but also your worship style.
Right, and what you just talked about, it comes across as more authentic than if I have a little rolling intro promo graphic, and then I have the minute with my pastor, and then some, if it looks like it's really polished, it becomes a little less authentic for the purpose we were talking about, with it's just a weekly, stay in touch message.
Yeah, that's the context which I'm talking about. But again, you can certainly go through all those other things that you just mentioned if you want to really, really get into video. And there's a lot of churches that do that, and that's great. We're just trying to give you some simple reasons here and some simple ways to do this that will help attract visitors and connect with people. So
we were on this, before we went down this path here, we were on this, why do people connect with a church, right? And you said number one was the pastor.
Right, the pastor's one of them.
And the second one was
Well, it's various reasons. Worship style is a big part. There are people that like a certain style of your worship service, and it can be lots of different styles out there. So the style of music is one reason why many churchgoers decide that they're going to attend a church or keep attending. So if you've got somebody that's just moved across, just moved into the community, and they're seeking a church, maybe they're seeking a church with a great choir, or maybe they're really into this Christian rock thing, Christian band, contemporary stuff. Okay, if you've got some of that on your website, as far as the video goes, again, doesn't have to be an entire song.
Right.
It can be just a minute or so of it.
It builds that bridge of familiarity. Like,
Right.
I know what I'm getting into when I visit this place.
Yeah, exactly. The style of music, and I've seen this, you've seen this happen before, where we've had people walk into our churches, and as soon as the band starts up, because Steve and I both kind of go to churches that have, we don't have choirs, we don't have more traditional, we have more contemporary stuff, and we have a band, you have a band, and I've seen people walk in and turn around, walk out because they didn't like the music.
Right.
And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. If you go in there and you
could have saved them a trip, we had video of the...
Well, exactly. So if they just would have seen it on video, ahead of time, they would have saved them the time and money to go down and walk in and then turn around and walk out.
So what's the third reason? So pastors first, worship style.
I think the other one would be your kids ministry, especially if you're a younger church reaching younger people. You really, children's ministry is very important to young families. And so hopefully if you're listening to this podcast, you've got, if you're trying to reach younger families, you've got a decent children's ministry, hopefully. Well, what you could do is you can do a little deal where you can kind of maybe have a little video of some of the children's workers.
Right. A vignette of, I'm envisioning a vignette of, maybe 30 seconds or so, but it's got different age groups and shows the people working with the youth or the kids and the various age groups. So you can kind of get a feel for.
Yeah. You got somebody leading that area of ministry that have them share for a few seconds what children's ministry means to them, why they're involved in children's ministry, so that people on the other end can say, oh, that person seems like they have a heart for kids.
Yeah, and it looks like a safe environment. Yeah. I know new parents, we were just had lunch earlier today, and we were in New Parent Restaurantville. And so, it would, I could see where the new parents would want to have, where am I going to hand my kids off for an hour or so? Where are they going to be, and what's that going to be like?
Yeah. So video can aid you in that. You can get some shots of teachers and maybe pan a shot of some kids or something, from a distance or whatever, and where, people can get a good feel. It doesn't take long, 30 seconds or a minute, you can get kind of a feel for what that looks like. Just really important stuff that I think you can use video. And again, we're talking not anything real elaborate, just some video here that you can put on different places on your website or on your social media. So I guess the question people are going to have, okay, well, what's it take to do this? And I got ahead of the gun a little bit here. I jumped the gun a little bit.
But that was a good example when you talked about, you need a smartphone and somebody willing to participate in some decent lighting and not a noisy area where you got some good audio. I mean, that's the minimal kind of deal. You don't want to annoy people with a really bad quality, but what you get on the phone is more than adequate.
It certainly can be. I mean, I have an iPhone 6 now, and I've noticed, in my opinion, the camera's better than it was on my iPhone 4, and I noticed even some of the newer Androids, I mean, their cameras are pretty good. They're pretty decent cameras. And so it's not like you have to spend a ton of money. You probably, chances are, you have a smartphone or somebody has one that might, let you use it or something and do it for you. The key to, and this goes back to stuff we've talked about with streaming video, the key to any video is you want it to be, the lighting to be decent. You want the audio to be good and decent.
Right.
And obviously.
And those are the two. I mean, you don't want to struggle to see what's going on or struggle to understand what's happening. Right. You get those, and you can, So it's the same way with
what we're talking about today. I mean,
right.
You can, with the quality of the cameras on videos, especially the smartphones, you can have a decent looking thing. And, try it a couple times. Yeah, you may have to do it a few times before you get it down, but, do it once and then play it back and look at it. Does this look pretty good? Ask somebody's opinion on it, or two, and say, hey, what's this look like?
And we often get the question of, what camera do you recommend and that sort of thing. And right. Our most common response is, well, it's kind of like recommending a car, and it's going to depend on your budget and what your quality expectations are and that sort of thing. Yeah. So, I mean, we've got a range of, we actually have on our website a range of, for streaming equipment, and it has a band in there for the camera suggestions. So you can spend anywhere from starting on your cell phone, which shouldn't cost you anything, up to several $1,000s on cameras.
You can. And there's just, there's the common ones, the Canons, the Sonys. Panasonic, I think, makes a decent one. Mm-hmm. Something you might, if you're going to do this on a regular basis and you really jump into this, you might want to get something, like one of these cameras that you may spend $500 or $1,000 on if you've got the budget. It's a consumer cam. We're talking about a consumer, but the consumer ones are good. They're small and they're mobile. And again, we're talking about not streaming video per se, although you could do that with streaming. But, we're talking about having something that's mobile, easy to use, so you can get video snippets, video shots, and then put it on different places of your websites. Mm-hmm. I would recommend a tripod if you're going to do something like that, because tripods, you can, they're easy to use. You can set tripods up, and you can always move them very quickly, and you don't get quite the movement that you would just doing a handheld. So those are important to have, I think. And again, if you're going to do more of a, formal or professional, you definitely want to make sure your audio, where you've got either lapel mics or. Yeah,
we've been through this too. The lapel mics do make a big difference, especially if you got a couple of people talking.
Right.
Then having a couple of lapel mics is good.
Yeah, those are ideal if you're going to do like short little clips with interviews and stuff. I have found that the little, what do they call those things? It's not a lapel mic. It's the ones that kind of hang off your ear. Jeff uses one. I use one. I can't think of it.
Wireless mic.
They're wireless. Those can be nice. For speaking and for pastoring and, preaching, so to speak. And you could also use those for your video too. But the lapel mics for short little temporary things that you're doing, quick little snippets are good as well. Probably the question a lot of people have is, well, how do I edit these things? What if I really want to do something and not just do a one-take deal, but I want to do some editing? That's a little bit more, there's a little more complication to that. Editing software, again, there's stuff out there. We're about running out of time here. If you have a PC, you could always use Movie Maker. That's cheap. It actually, the newer versions when I started using Movie Maker a few years ago, I always had issues, but the ones I've got now work pretty good, actually. If you've got a Mac, iMovie?
Right.
You're a Mac guy.
Yep.
iMovie. You may have to buy iMovie, right?
We were talking about that. Not. If you have a Mac, you may have it. If you want it on your iPad, I think you may need to buy it.
Final Cut is something that's out there. That's several $100 for Final Cut, right?
Yeah.
Software. I've never used it. Adobe Premiere, I have used that at my other church, and now Adobe has a deal where it's monthly, right?
Yeah, so that's all they offer now is monthly.
So it's like, what is it? Somewhere $20 to $50 a month to use Adobe products. So those are some tools you can use. We're about out of time here, but hopefully that what we've talked about here, some good reasons why video can help your church, reach people and retain people. These little things we've talked about hopefully will enable you and add to what you're doing. So questions, comments, we'd love to hear from you. Here's the email, support@StreamingChurch.tv, support@StreamingChurch.tv. We are on iTunes, Church Solutions Podcast. We're on YouTube. Maybe look for StreamingChurch.tv, and we're other places too. I think New Media Ministries, NewMediaMinistries.tv is our little blog thing that we have and stuff. So we'd love to hear from you. So let us know what we can do for you or help you with any of these things, or just give us some input. Time is done. So I'm Phil Thompson.
I'm Steve Lacy.
And we will catch you next time for another edition of the Church Solutions Podcast. Have a great day.